it's not about memorizing problems. It's about learning patterns or learning concepts. Sometimes in the act of grind leak code, march leak code, you end up suffering in the non-technical aspects. I'll be honest, I wasn't able to land any internships initially. And what helped me stand out was thinking outside the box. That entailed looking at local businesses in the area.
If you know how to position yourself correctly, you'll have access to roles and opportunities that they don't even advertise.
Yeah, you want someone that you can say, I can see this person being my teammate. You don't want this person saying, okay, he's great at coding, but he seems like he'll be a pain to work with.
I think technical skills can only get you so far.
Yeah.
Now you want to be able to bring to life that work to people who don't have a technical background and communicate that in a nice, concise manner.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
It's your ability to talk to people. One thing that people have always kind of said to me is that I'm quite personable, quite friendly, and just kind of very open to hearing anything that people have to say. Start on something, search it on Google. Especially with AI, ChatGPT as well. Use ChatGPT.
What's your thoughts on those kind of AI chat boxes? Should people be using them, or?
It's a tool like any other, but I think it's very easy / dangerous to rely on, right? Especially if you're starting out. I think it can actually hamper your growth. I think there's nothing wrong with using LinkedIn to, market yourself, market your brand, market who you are. With X, it might be a little bit harder to market yourself in that way. I highly doubt that recruiters will be looking at your X profile. I think TikTok is great. It's a great one, especially if you're maybe doing like short form content, educational content for tech or educational content in general, or whatever you're marketing yourself as. I love solving problems. I love learning new technologies. So you'll definitely see me typing away, coding, writing new pieces of code. For me, 2025, my journey is definitely to try and be a full stack engineer.
Welcome back to the channel and a slightly different episode for you today. It's time to get some industry expertise and insight. So today I'm joined by experienced software engineer, the man to my left. His knowledge is light years above his age, and if he wishes to disclose his age, I'll let him do that. But this is a discussion that I'm really looking forward to. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce Chuks Ajeh.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. And this is something that's been a long time in the making. And
for sure. We spoke about this quite a lot.
So I'm glad to finally have you here with me. So like I said there, you are a very talented, a very experienced software engineer. How did you get to where you are now? Like, who are you?
Oh, you're bigging me up a lot, man. Thank you. But it was. I would say it probably started with my uncle. So my uncle is a software engineer himself, and when I used to go to his house, I used to go over and play games and stay over. And I remember going into his office one time, and he just had like a shelf of programming books. I remember asking him questions about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I programmed. This is what you can do with programming." And I asked him to show me, and he showed me using like Unity, which is like to build games. So for me, that was like my love of games and like that entry point of like building your own video game and stuff like that. That's what kind of really inspired me to get into it. So started programming that way, built my own little obstacle course using Unity, and then got to secondary school and picked up computer science GCSE. So started to get a bit more serious, enjoyed it there, then took it for A-level, and then went on to university to go and study it there. Since then, obviously in the industry now, I've been working for about 3 years. And yeah, I've just been loving it, like every bit of it. Get to solve different problems, see different domains, learn different things, and yeah, just keep learning, keep growing as an engineer.
So for our listeners that don't know what an engineer is, can you just give us a little bit of insight as to what a day-to-day a software engineer does, what it entails?
So it depends. In my case, I'm a back-end engineer. So I work on the things that customers usually don't really see. So that can be things like APIs, and that's just access points for users to retrieve or manipulate data, databases. So that's how we store data, and then all of those things can then be accessed by the visuals, the front end, which is maybe what a front end software engineer would work on. So that's my day to day. That's what I work on, the back end stuff.
And I guess there's lots of programming languages that are around nowadays. Yeah. What are some of the key programming languages that you use day to day or has helped you to get to where you are?
I'll say day to day, I use Java. That's what our back end is written in, and that's what most of my roles have used as a back end. I would say that there's no one tool. There's no best tool for the back end. I've used Go. I've used Rust. Used C++ as well. I've learned all of those different things and use all of them. There isn't any one that's better than the other. They all have their use cases and they all have their strengths. But for day to day, I use Java.
That's interesting. There's a few more questions that I want to ask in regards to the programming languages, but once we get into the discussion,
that's fine.
We'll talk about this a little bit more and explore it. So me and you, before we did the podcast, were having a discussions about where we could really add value to our listeners.
Yep.
And you made a really good point here about thinking outside the box.
Yep.
To gain experience.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting topic. Can you explain to me what you meant by this?
So, absolutely. I think that kind of starts off with like my personal experience. And I think it's the fact that a lot of people try and apply for internships. The competition is fierce. Let's be honest. Everyone kind of wants to get into tech. Everyone wants to be a software engineer, whether it's for the money, whether it's for the passion. And so you kind of want to find a way to stand out. For me, I'll be honest, I wasn't able to land any internships initially. And what helped me stand out was thinking outside the box. That entailed looking at local businesses in the area. So I went to Swansea, studied at Swansea, which is in Wales, the UK, and applied for a job that was posted by a local Swansea business. And it was a local startup. Worked with them during my entire second year of university. And not only did it allow me to, gain experience, professional experience, but it also enabled me to obviously supplement my income, help with living expenses at university, and just apply what I'm learning at university in a real world setting. So I would say that's probably the first way of thinking outside the box. A lot of people just apply for big companies. You might find that, especially in the UK, apply to a local business that might be looking to build a website, that might be looking to update their website, and they don't want to pay thousands of pounds, dollars, or whatever they're paying for a professional. You can be that student that helps them update their business or modernize their business for the 21st century. So I think that's, for me, what thinking outside the box is. Another way is approaching organizations or seeing people that are looking for workers to help them out. One example of that was when I had a friend who was saying that he was working for an organization that helps disadvantaged black people get into the corporate spaces within the UK. And after speaking with the leader of that organization, I was more than happy to sign on and help out, helping to develop their first website and providing technical expertise whenever I could. And again, that's something to put on my CV, that I'm helping real world clients in 2 instances during my university experience before I've even graduated. So that benefits me massively, but also benefits the people that I'm working with.
Now, I'm going to be totally honest. When I first started doing my degree, and you know this because you was a big part of why I was able to actually gain my degree and did a lot of my teaching, I did not have a clue. And I remember when I first got my job, do you remember?
Yes, yeah.
In Spain, and I was introduced to command line.
Yep.
And I remember calling you from a hotel room.
Yes. Yeah. It was honestly, it was rough. It was very, very rough.
Do you remember? And I was like, I have no idea what this is or what I am doing.
Yep.
And at that point, I did kind of think to myself, that degree, I don't know if it really holds me in good stead for the actual real world application of work. So I guess my question to you now is, did that experience, hands-on experience, was that the thing that made it different for you? Because I feel as though, like, my degree, as great as it is to have education, it kind of just gives you a little introduction, just gives you dips your feet into the water, but you only really know how to do the job and what's required once you're in that pool. And I felt like at times, most of the time, I was drowning, definitely for the first 6 months. And like I said, you remember those phone calls we had. So
absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think maybe back in the day, university prepared you in all areas that you needed for what you needed at work. But in 2024, it's, especially in tech, as fast moving as it is, it doesn't. and it's not supposed to. I think a degree in software engineering, a degree in computer science is really just a starting point if you're not going into research. And even within going into research, you're taking an undergraduate degree. There's still the master's, there's still the PhD. It's still a lifelong adventure of learning. It's the same thing like post-graduation in industry. Whatever you learn at university, some of it will be useful, some of it will be completely useless. But that's the nature of holistic degrees that are trying to capture everything from cybersecurity to databases to the maths behind formal languages. They cannot cover everything. And I frankly believe they shouldn't have to cover everything. I think it should be a starting point for you to then go on and develop your skills. One lecturer that I had in my first year, as strict and difficult as he was, very thankful to the advice he gave, which was that you should be practicing your programming outside of your degree, because the problems that you'll see in your degree are very, very limited in scope. They're only the creation and imaginations of the teacher that is on the course. But there are going to be so many real world problems that you want to work on. There's going to be so many different things that you want to maybe explore. And the only way you do that is by taking the time to do it yourself. And so was university useful? Absolutely, because it gave me a starting point and helped me develop the raw skills that I had and like the ideas that I was forming in university, and like gave them a structure that I could then take on and build from.
That's interesting. I want to explore something that you said a couple of minutes ago. These local businesses, where was you finding them? Sorry, because traditionally we're all going to LinkedIn or Indeed search engines in order to find internships, or maybe sometimes universities have some companies that approach them directly. But I've never really heard about people working with these local firms. And I think that's a really clever and unorthodox approach. How did this occur, or who directed you? So as a student or a novice, where did you able to map out this plan?
To be honest, it started as, I think, during my attempt to land internships. I just finished first year, felt like I was ready for, to land an internship, and I was applying. I wasn't really seeing much success. And like you said, started on LinkedIn, went over to, the other big job sites as well. And I think it was just a case of just trying different job sites, but also just searching up like tech hubs in Swansea. Swansea has tried to really update themselves and try and build a tech hub out in Wales. And that was something that my lecturers spoke about often. So taking that information in mind, it's just a case of searching up different tech hubs in Wales and in Swansea. And it came up with a tech hub within the Swansea area, within the Wine Street area. And it came up with a business that I ended up joining. So it's those things, having those conversations and asking, are there any local tech hubs in your area? There might not be, and that's okay. But at the same time, I do implore people to not just think about getting an internship and coming to London. You might find that there's one in your local area. And if there isn't, I completely understand. You could also do remote. In the age post-pandemic, there will be a lot of startups and businesses or people trying to build something that are more than willing to take you on a remote position. So do that, especially if you're a university student. And I understand, obviously, income and finances. If you can, if it is unpaid, still take it, because what you need more than your degree is experience, real world experience and industry experience that you can then put on your CV to then apply for those roles.
Yeah, that's amazing. I totally agree with that. I do wish that I had some internship that prepared me for the real world of working in data analytics, because the first few months was definitely a shock to my system. And it's a steep learning curve. Which,
it is. And sorry to cut you off there. Of course, it's because of the fact that, like I said, there's only so much you learn. And I remember a manager saying to me that even after having that degree, you still don't really know much. You still need to learn how to code like a professional. Still need to learn how the team processes are. Still need to know how things work at the company you're working at. And all of that are learned on the job and in the moment. And so no matter where you kind of join, it's always going to be a steep learning curve. But that is the nature of tech, and you can make it easier on yourself by just embracing it. Embrace that. Embrace the fact that you're going to have a flurry of concepts thrown at you. Some will stick, some you're going to have to ask again, and that's okay. It's okay to ask questions in this industry.
Some really good points there. Something else that so we're going to move on.
No worries, man.
To the next topic here. Now, you said to me supporting initiatives.
Yeah.
Like charities.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this one before.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
Yeah. So the initiative that I supported was Global Purpose Enterprise.
Okay.
So they help Black professionals, 16 to 25, land corporate spaces. And as I said, it starts off the back of a conversation, reaching out to the person and having a conversation. Like, okay, so what do you do? I'm studying computer science, work in tech. I want to work in tech. That's the hope. And then saying, okay, well, I'm trying to, and then the conversation went over into, I'm trying to build a website. Are you willing to help? Are you willing to spend some time? And that was pretty much it. It was just a case of he needed a website and I needed experience. And it was a win-win for both of us.
Yes.
But it's a case of, you're not always going to have those conversations, and I completely understand that. But you could see maybe there's a small charity in the area, for example, like a food bank, that is maybe looking for people to donate, or looking to, establish, like showcase that they're open maybe certain periods during the week, and people might not be aware. Reach out to them, say, would you be willing for me to build your website for free? I'm not looking for anything. Or even if you want to charge a small amount as well, you can say, like, look, these are my rates. Would you be willing to take me on and I'll build your website? That is supporting a local initiative, a food bank, which is massive need in the UK. And you also get to develop your skills in a real world way. That's it.
So I know in that initiative there, you built a website, and I want to just try and clarify things a little bit, because so in terms of software engineering,
yes,
web development, is that an aspect of something that software engineers do?
Yes.
Or
so it depends. Yeah. So I mean, it depends largely on the organization that you're joining. So a software engineer can be someone that's working in low-level programming. That's like embedded hardware. You could be working with hardware. Web development is just one aspect, and for the most part, most applications will be some kind of web-based platform. So it's not necessarily like you're building like a website per se, but it might be a web app. It might be a web app platform that requires logging in, storing details, storing session data and stuff like that. All of those things, that's all software engineering. So there are, I guess, I don't want to say niches. But there's various aspects, like I said, embedded programming, low-level programming. But for the most part, most people that are doing some form of software engineering, it's some kind of web-based application in some form or another, whether it's mobile apps or just web apps.
Okay. I'm hearing a new term thrown around a lot nowadays. Cloud engineer, solutions architect. What's going on there?
I mean, the honest answer is I don't know too much about that. But what I can say is that in terms of the way that people deploy their applications, some people obviously do it on-prem, others do it in the cloud. And so you might need someone that is well-versed in cloud architecture, whether it's Google Cloud Platform, whether it's Amazon Web Services, to help you deploy your app safely and securely. And so I think those are the things that people refer to when they talk about cloud architecture. There are optimal ways that you can deploy your application that doesn't require necessarily having Docker, Kubernetes, and then Google Cloud. You could maybe just have Docker and deploy the Docker image and then run the Docker image in the cloud. But then if you're maybe a bigger organization, you might need Kubernetes for orchestration, scaling, and stuff like that.
What do these... People like me, I'm a novice.
My bad.
I'm on the analytics reporting layer side. I don't know what these fancy software engineer terms are. So.
I get you. So, I mean, in the case of Docker is just containerizing your application. All that means is you might have written a Java application. You want other people to be able to use it. So you basically put it in some kind of container, and then you can then use clouds to basically host it, and then people can access the application via that hosting cloud using like a domain. So for example, let's say you're accessing Amazon, right? Amazon might have some of their microservices, like their small applications, like the login, for example. That might be a microservice that's contained in a Docker container and then hosted on Amazon AWS. So that's what it means. It's just a way of allowing the services to be available, and cloud is one of the modern ways to do that.
So we have a platform,
Yep.
and that is the container,
Yep.
and essentially we're allowing people to access it via Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's various cloud service providers.
Yes.
Some actually piggyback off of the bigger ones. So you might have like a smaller cloud service provider that actually piggybacks off of AWS. But for the most part, all of these different services allow for some form of hosting that allows you to basically host your application and have people access your application in a secure manner. I referenced orchestration earlier. Obviously, you're creating Docker containers, but let's say your app gets really popular. So you might want to make use of Kubernetes, and all that means is that it orchestrates in terms of the spinning up of more Docker containers to service more users, and also the spinning down, because if you don't have as many users, you don't need that much computing resource, as well as scaling vertically and horizontally depending on usage.
Okay, cool. You mentioned something else to me. I'm going to move on now. You spoke about taking a holistic approach.
Yes.
Now, me and you are both from a sports background. Yeah. So holistic approach to me means we're going to go to training, do our session.
Yeah.
We're going to finish training, then we're going to think about recovery, which might be a massage or some stretching. And then we might want to work on the mental aspect as well. So for me, holistic refers to making sure all the cogwheels are running smoothly and turning in sync.
Absolutely.
But I've not really heard anyone say this in terms of the data space, developing holistically. What did you mean by this?
So it's exactly as you use with the sports analogy. Developing holistically for me means trying different technologies. So in the case of everything that we spoke about so far, obviously if and when you get to university, you'll pick up some kind of backend language, whether it's PHP, whether it's Java. Some places might even use like Node.js as the backend, right? Or if you're self-taught, same thing. But what I mean holistically is also taking care to, learn some front-end concepts as well, learn some cloud concepts as well, or like infrastructure concepts as well, because you want, especially in such a fierce environment at the moment where there's so much competition, you want to be able to stand out. If you're the candidate that only really knows, you've graduated, you only really know Java, that's okay. I mean, you graduated and that's what you know. But then if there's another candidate that knows Java to a good degree, but is also aware of Google Cloud to a good degree, has knowledge of CI/CD pipelines, version control is kind of like an expected minimum, and also has knowledge of front end, they are more of a complete package, and also someone that is probably able to get to speed or hit the ground running sooner than, say, the student that only really knows just the backend language. And so you stand out more and are more marketable as a candidate when applying for these jobs. Another thing as well is that when you're applying for these jobs, you can apply for more. You don't need to be a software engineer. You could be a specialized engineer in the sense of you can work in DevOps. You can work as purely a front end. You can work as purely a back end. You can also work as a full stack. You have all of these options are now open to you because you've dabbled in each of these technologies. Yes, you might still be a junior. Yes, you might still be a graduate, but you have more roles that are available to you to apply for. It's harder to sell yourself as a back-end engineer that's just graduated, applying for like a junior or entry-level role, and then you're not saying, okay, I want to apply for a front end. You have no experience. You have nothing in your CV to suggest that you're capable of doing this, using this language.
Yeah.
Yes, in reality, the skills are transferable, but when you're selling yourself to, let's be honest, as a recruiter that might not necessarily be technically savvy in terms of all of the terms that we use, it's going to be a harder sell. And so you want to make it easier for the recruiter to say, you're the candidate that I want. And one of the ways is being able to showcase all of those different technologies with a project. And the thing is, it's not hard. I think a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to learn about Google Cloud. We were using it at my company. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn Google Cloud. Google offers a free, like I think 3-month service or a month service where you get to use Google Cloud for free. So during that time, I learned how to Dockerize a Java Spring Boot application, Dockerized it, and then uploaded the image onto Google Cloud, and I could access it via Postman, connected it to a front end, and that's a full stack application that's working within maybe like a weekend. That's a project in and of itself that you can put on your CV. Said I created a full stack application in a weekend. Another thing as well is that if you're looking for like project ideas, Reddit is an amazing place to be. There's a subreddit called side projects or side hustles. People have ideas there all the time. You're not trying to make money off the idea, just trying to build something that you can put in your CV. Use one of the ideas there, or see queries and frustrations that people have put on Reddit or other places or other forums to then use that to build an idea.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here. It's funny enough because I was reading an article the other day that spoke about sharpening your focus.
Yeah.
Doing fewer things and doing them really well.
Yeah.
So doesn't it depend on at what stage of your career you're at? So for example, for me now, I can switch between Power BI, ClickSense. I haven't used Tableau, but I'd be quite confident in learning those skills on the reporting layer. Yeah. But that's because now that I've got experience in 1 or 2 applications, I think the concepts behind it, the foundations are the same. I know that I'm going to load in some data. I know that I probably might have to do a little bit of cleaning or transformation. Then we're going to build some charts. But it's just that the way that you do it, they all have their own language. So do you not think it depends on what stage in your career that you're at to be able to have the ability to do what you just said? Because I feel like you're spinning many plates. And I do get it because the job market is so competitive. But
it's a good point. And my rebuttal to that is you are so early in your career, especially if you're just getting into the industry, you are not ready to specialize. Even now, I don't feel like I'm in that position where I can say I'm going to specialize in only backend. I'm learning front end right now. I'm learning Angular and TypeScript right now because I want to be able to have a greater breadth of skills. So if me as someone that's been in the industry for about 3-4 years doesn't feel like the need to heavily specialize right now, I don't think someone trying to break into the industry should be specializing in one thing or 1 or 2 things right now. I mean, it depends on if you know for a fact that you don't want to be a front-end engineer, then fine, specialize in stuff only within the back end. But I do think that you do yourself a disservice if you don't look at all the different things you can do and try and develop some skills in that. I'm not asking you to be a master at all of these things. I'm just saying dabble in it. 1 or 2 projects in with 1 or 2 full stack projects is not going to hurt. And it's gonna help you develop a knowledge of the entire stack, which is what happens in most companies. Most companies do not just have a back-end code base; they have a back-end and a front-end code base. And you building your own application that does all of that enables you to have a better understanding of how it's connected, how the 2 sides of the application are connected. So I don't think heavily specializing early is good, but I can understand why people might choose to do it.
Yeah, I understand. It's interesting. Sometimes people talk about industry knowledge. Yeah. You've worked in a couple of different industries already, haven't you? Yeah. And you have probably, your career development is, I wouldn't say obviously not accelerated, but you've done very well, very quickly. Yeah. Is that due to you deciding to work in different industries, or how do these different industries differ? First and foremost, my first question. Yeah. And has that contributed to you accelerating your development?
I would say that, to be honest, in terms of the industries that I've worked in, they haven't been all that too dissimilar. I mean, the place I'm at now is, I would say, it's FinTech. It's finance adjacent. We work quite heavily within the financial space. Then the previous place I was at as well, whilst it wasn't just finance, we also did obviously work with I guess, financially orientated organizations as well. And then previously, before that, I was working at a finance adjacent company as well. Yes, they are quite similar, but in terms of the things that I was working on and doing at those places, they were all vastly different. I think what enabled me to develop quickly is working on high impact projects, but also even when I'm not working on high impact projects, when I'm hearing about projects that people have been working on, just reaching out, asking questions, just saying like, so, you know, what did you do here? I've reviewed your PR for this thing. What did you do here? Or like, what was the work that you're working on? And just asking questions to help yourself develop and understand the concepts that they've put together themselves.
What's a high impact project?
For me, a high impact project is one that has high visibility, but also impacts a lot of people, or has a high impact within your organization. One example for me is working on a different part of service within my company. Day to day, I work on products, and then I moved and started doing client services. Now, the project wrapped up well in the sense of client was happy, my team were happy, and we were happy with the performance overall. That is high impact because it was a new client. Client ended up being really happy, and then my team ended up being really happy about it. So that's also high visibility because we knew that it was a big project for everyone. And the fact that we were able to perform, the fact that I was whilst not necessarily the lead of the project, had a major role within that project. And so it's high visibility in that Chuks was a major key player within this big project that we were trying to get off the ground. That's high impact and that's high visibility. I understand that not every project is going to be high impact and not going to be high visibility. So in those cases, it's really about selling yourself, making sure that your team is aware of what you're doing, your manager is aware of what you're doing, because those conversations enable you to not necessarily be for promotion, but enable you to be in places that you can then maybe end up working on a high impact project or working on a more investable project that you want to work on.
You said something repeatedly there. Client.
Yes.
So this doesn't really refer to technical skills. I think technical skills can only get you so far.
Yeah.
Can get you into an organization, junior role, maybe a mid-tier role.
Yeah.
But now you want to be senior. Now you want to be analytics lead. Now you want to be able to bring to life that work to people who don't have a technical background and communicate that in a nice, concise manner.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about this aspect and how do you do it?
That one it's difficult. I think it's because it's your ability to talk to people. I think in my case, one thing that people have always kind of said to me is that I'm quite personable, quite friendly, and just kind of very open to hearing anything that people have to say. And so that lends it to being able to, again, put yourself in a position where someone might just want to speak to you about something and they're like, you know what, like, it was good to talk to you. Actually, I've got this thing that I'm working on that I need help on. You guys work on it together. And then it's actually, there's something else that I wanted to work on, but I would like you to be a part of it too. Developing those relationships with people really, really helps to navigate those spaces to, for example, the high impact projects. But also, especially when you maybe need, in the case of a startup, you need someone that's maybe both technical and client facing. It enables you to be in that space. In my case, that's what happened to me. It enabled me to be in that space because I'm personable. I'm able to speak on the technical details, but also the key thing, speak on something in the way of a layman. I understand that some people are not going to understand what an API is. So how do you get that information across that, okay, I can do what you need me to do, but I need to build the API, I need to build a database, I need to do all of these different things. If people are in the business area, they don't care about those terms, but they do need to understand what's going to happen. And so you need to be able to speak in a way that they understand whilst not being patronizing and dumbing things down for them, but being clear and being able to have that relationship, develop that relationship with people that might not necessarily speak your language.
So how do you deal with, you must have had encounters where client relationships have been a little bit turbulent.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Okay.
And when you have a project, how do you map out the project from start to finish? So is there any kind of resources that you use, like, I don't know, Kanban boards, you know?
Yeah, so that's kind of hard for me to speak on because with the experience I haven't led projects, especially in those areas where a project might be, might be late or like we're behind. I'm usually the person working it within the project, and then the person that's like leading it will have those conversations. So I generally can't quite speak on those things. But in terms of the other part that you said, in terms of, what was that again?
In terms of the outlay for the project. So from start to finish, how do we go from gathering user requirements to this is the end product for your app or your development to the client going, wow, like this is exactly what we're looking for. And how do you manage this relationship throughout? Yeah,
so that kind of depends on the kind of organization that you're at. So in the case of my previous role, there's a product manager for that. There's managers for that. That isn't really that's not my domain. There to write code. In the case of a startup, those lines tend to be blurred a little bit more. And so, especially if processes aren't in place, you can be the one to establish a process. One of the great things about the place that I work at now is that if you have an idea or if you feel like something needs to be put in place, own it, lead it, do it. And that's what I did when we were getting set up. I said, we use Notion for a lot of things. Let's put together.
I keep hearing about this app.
Yeah.
Notion
is
I've
good.
seen a lot of people raving about it on videos. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's generally considered like a productivity app. Okay. And you can kind of do all sorts with it. You can, just write documentation on it. You can, store information, files, whatever. But you can also create boards, whether it's for like, sprints, retrospectives, or just project boards. And that's what we did in this particular situation. Just creating project boards where you can, in a Kanban situation, move the cards around saying, this is in progress, this is done, this is abandoned. And it's very quick to do. But it has such a good impact because you can click on a particular card, see the details of the card, move it to done if you finished it, abandon it, have conversations around it. And Notion, I think Notion's great, to be honest.
Okay, little nugget for you guys there, Notion app. If you haven't got it, maybe you can get a free trial. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for the most part, it's actually free. I think once you use up a certain number of blocks, then you have to pay for it. So, but yeah, no, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
What would you... Because we always talk about the blueprint, basically. Everyone's talking about the perfect journey. Yeah. But we all know that it doesn't quite work like that. And I think there's, as that great saying goes, if we knew now what we did back then... Yeah. Is that the right? I don't even think I said that correct.
I get you. I understand what you're saying. So it's all good. If I know now what I knew back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you do differently?
Ooh, what would I do differently? I think.
And on top of that, what were some of the mistakes that you made? Yeah. Now looking back at it.
Yeah. Okay. I think the first thing is just knowledge about interviews. I'll be honest, there are some interviews that I had a mare. It was awful. As in, I'd go in and then they're asking me questions. I was just trying to solve the question. But I don't know how to solve the question. And especially if it's like a telephone interview, they're like, okay, so can you solve the question for me on the board? I'm just like, I can't try. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so,
it's over before.
Honestly, I'm done. Like, at this point, I'm wasting time because I know I don't know this question. And I'm sure the interviewer on the call knows I don't know this question. And the reason for that was just because I didn't practice. I didn't practice, and I thought I did. I thought I was practicing. I was, solving Java questions and Java knowledge questions.
But you can't be a robot, though. Everyone says, "Here are the top 75 interview questions."
Yeah.
But you don't know what's coming at you.
That's the thing. And even with those things, like even with those top interview questions, they will always some places don't have custom questions. That's the first thing. And then another thing is some places also extend known interview questions and stretch it in a way that you're not going to know the answer to because it doesn't exist. You have to solve it there and then. And so it's not about memorizing problems. It's about learning patterns or learning concepts. So for example, a lot of software engineers will learn LeetCode or grind LeetCode, as the term is. And some people will just go through as many questions as possible to make sure that they're ready. But rather than doing that, learn the concepts. Learn sliding windows, learn pivoting, learn swaps, learn learn how to memorization, for example, dynamic programming. Learn those concepts, and you then don't need to worry about what kind of question is going to come up because it might have all of those different concepts. But because you know the concepts, you're not looking for a particular problem known by a particular company. It's a lot easier to handle when you get thrown a curveball. So that's one thing I definitely wish I did. Rather than just trying to memorize a question, then I'm now struggling because I was not expecting this question. So, a great example was I was learning about linked trees because I knew this company used linked trees. So, okay, cool. I can do this. And then they had a doubly linked tree on multi-level. I was like, I can't do this. I can't solve this question.
I've been there. We've all been there.
So, but the thing is, I knew that if I'd learned about the different concepts and learned about linked trees from a conceptual level, rather than just trying to solve a problem about linked trees, it would have been a lot easier to handle such a difficult question, in my opinion. I think another thing as well that I wish I'd done differently is not being so focused on just the interviews, right?
Yes.
I think especially in the act of grinding, you kind of forego everything, right? And the problem with that is by foregoing everything, you end up more stressed, you make mistakes, you end up being sloppy in other areas, particularly, yes, obviously the technical is quite important, but the behavioral is also important. You want a software engineer that's competent, but you also want a software engineer that you can speak to. You want a software engineer that isn't just, quiet, headphones in the corner, you don't speak to that person. The
typical nerd, the conventional stereotype.
That stereotype has died, man. It's over. It's over. I think people are collaborative. People speak to each other. People work with each other. I can't tell you the number of times that maybe after stand up, we're like, yeah, so I'm stuck on this thing. Can I reach out to you? Or someone say, yeah, I saw that you were working on this, a couple of weeks back. Can you jump on and we can have a conversation? It's very collaborative. It's a collaborative space. So you want to be able to showcase that you can actually have a conversation. And if all you've done is just focus on just the technical aspect, you might not realize that your ability to have a conversation has suffered. I can't tell you the number of times I had a good interview and the interview honestly just feels like a conversation. It's not really an interview. There's maybe a little bit of banter there. Obviously not all interviews are banter. Don't try and start the banter. Let the interviewer start the banter. But some interviews have just been very easy and very light conversations. And that's because the technical part's gone well. And now they feel like, oh, actually, this is maybe someone that I can see as my teammate. And that's what you want. You want someone that you can say, I can see this person being my teammate. You don't want this person saying, okay, he's great at coding, but he seems like he'd be a pain to work with. That is not what you want. And sometimes in the act of grind LeetCode, march LeetCode, finish LeetCode, only grind LeetCode, you end up suffering in the non-technical aspects.
That's a really good point. I like that one. Someone that you can work with, a team player. Yeah. So that's great once you're trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
But I feel like getting your foot in the door and once you're in is a different type of developing relationships.
Right, I get you.
So now your foot's in the door.
Yeah.
How do you navigate developing these relationships now?
Easy. I think, especially as a junior person, it's very easy to feel daunted and feel like it's a daunting feeling. Sorry, is the right way to say it. It's like, oh, all these senior engineers, I hope I make a good impression. And there's one thing that my manager said to me at the time at the company I was working at when I first graduated. And it sounds a bit like an insult, I'll be honest. But he said that you have to understand that as a graduate, you're a drain on resources. And
ouch.
It's harsh. It's
Ouch.
very harsh. But the reason why he said that is, and I honestly felt for me, it was actually quite freeing. Because what you're saying is, as a graduate, you are a drain on resources.
I'm a burden. We was a burden back then.
Pretty much, we were burdens. And the reason why he said that is because no matter what you think you've learned at university, at an industry level, you know nothing. There's so much that a mid-level or a senior engineer or a principal engineer has to do or take time of their day solving something to now teach you that that's something that you might not understand. That might be, getting you acquainted with the code base. That might be, getting you acquainted with the CI/CD processes, right? So you've now learned CI/CD processes in general, but also how your company does it. But that's time that your principal or senior engineer could have been doing working on something else, right? And understanding that concept of, you are already viewed as a burden is actually, the reason why I said it's quite freeing is because it means that if they already view you as someone that needs to be taught or view you as someone that needs to be shaped and, I guess have knowledge imparted upon, right? That allows you to ask questions and that allows you to develop relationships. For example, if you're stuck on something, I always like to do the 1, 2, 3, 4 rule. This is something I learned working with students that were struggling at university. Just because I was doing okay at university, so I thought I could help other students. And the first thing is Google search. Like if you're stuck on something, search it on Google.
Nowadays, I'd say TikTok, because some of these 90-second reels,
true.
you can get a lot of valuable information.
True. But especially with AI, ChatGPT as well. Use ChatGPT.
What's your thoughts on those kind of AI chat boxes? Should people be using them, or they're a tool, I guess, to learn how to...
It's a tool like any other, but I think it's very, especially with AI, it's very easy / dangerous to rely on, right? Especially if you're starting out, I think it can actually hamper your growth. I remember a YouTuber, Primogen, he was talking about how, I think there was a video, either he was reviewing it or he was talking about it, that he felt like it kind of cuts off the thinking process because you offload that thinking process to the AI. And so the concept, the context that you kind of build as you're working a problem, even like on a subconscious level, it's kind of broken. There's gaps in that knowledge. And especially as someone like a junior starting out that really needs to kind of understand something that's like new in front of them, it can be quite problematic in terms of, making sure that this person actually understands what they're putting together, because it's very easy, especially if it's like a low level ticket. It's very easy to just say, okay, I can't really solve this. I'm going to get ChatGPT to do it. So I think you should be very mindful in how you use it. It's a tool, but like with most things, you can also abuse it. And especially as someone junior, I think you should be very mindful in how you use stuff like ChatGPT.
I think there's another important point there to add to that is what people don't think about is compliance and data governance.
So absolutely.
I used to work in the compliance aspect of BI.
Yeah.
And, we were very hot on, and you need to be very careful about what you put into these AI tools. Because ultimately they're all based on your information that you're giving them, but you're giving them sensitive company information.
Absolutely.
So it's important that people do realize that. For me personally, if I use those type of tools, I might want to say, how would I can you give me an example of how I can do something that I'm interested in? But copying and pasting,
that's dangerous. That's how you get fired.
Dangerous
That's how you
game.
get fired.
And I think people really need to appreciate that compliance and data governance is becoming a massive thing, because obviously now we've got so much data. Really, our regulation tools will continue to, and standards will continue to be improved. Thoughts?
I mean, as you said, you just got to be very careful. It's dangerous, like AI tools, like putting proprietary information. That is how you get fired. There's been multiple notable examples of people that have put something in that has caused a leak, that has got someone fired. Just be careful. I mean, especially in within software engineering or the data space, it's very simple to say, okay, how would I do a query that gets, a user ID, the country, and so on. So you do not need to put in the column data or the table data to see if it can generate a query for you. That is very dangerous. And so it's just, some companies are a bit more open about it. Some companies reject it outright. Find out your company's policy. Some places I know have actually got like their own license, which kind of locks off the overall ChatGPT and restricts it only to what's available within their ecosystem. You check if your company has that. You might find that your bank or your organization has like a licensed ChatGPT that allows you to use it. But I'd be very careful, very wary of, just copying and pasting something in ChatGPT and then getting an answer out. Because especially, we all know, organizations are watching our screens. HR or I guess IT would be watching our screens. And if they're seeing that you're, just dumping proprietary information, ChatGPT, you're going to get hauled in front of HR.
It's a problem.
It's a long day. It's a long day for everyone involved.
It's a problem for them. 100%. So on the same lines of these kind of apps, if you like.
Yeah.
I feel as though these, if you like, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, they're like the new CV. If used correctly. The traditional way of just uploading your CV is still there. It's still something that very much recruiters still look for in companies. But it's not the only way nowadays. Yeah. And I've seen a few podcasts where people even say, if you know how to position yourself correctly, you'll have access to roles and opportunities that they don't even advertise. Yeah. Absolutely. So, but I've also heard the flip side of someone say, one time, once I got the job, they actually said to me, because of something I wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, they almost pulled the role from me. So what is the boundaries that we all should have regarding how we use these spaces? Because recently I felt like in LinkedIn, I started seeing people almost posting things about their dog, what they did at the weekend. And I think to myself, and political views. And I always think these are, in my opinion, these spaces, if I, as a recruiter or someone, I think to myself, is that what the kind of behavior that you should be doing? So just give me a little bit of background about what your thoughts are on this.
I mean, I think as with all things, there's a balance. I mean, LinkedIn, even though it's for finding jobs, let's be honest, it is pretty much another form of social media. They've designed their platform to act as another form of social media as well. So it's no surprise to me that people will put the political views on there or will post, photos of their dog. And you notice already that people do try and market themselves on LinkedIn. And so I think there's nothing wrong with using LinkedIn to, market yourself, market your brand, market who you are. Same thing with X, though in the case of X, because of the kind of, I guess, like the political situation around it, and I guess like competition in, Blue Sky, Threads and stuff like that, you might find that with X, it might be a little bit harder to market yourself in that way, in a way that recruiters would be looking. I highly doubt that recruiters will be looking at your X profile, especially given with all the things that are on X these days. But I think they might look at it to, vet and see if you actually are someone that should still be given the role if you pass all the other tests. So be mindful of what you post on there. But like in terms of marketing yourself, I think TikTok is great. It's a great one, especially if you're maybe doing like short form content, maybe like educational content for tech or educational content in general, or whatever you're marketing yourself as. And then, like I said, LinkedIn is great as well.
And what about, is there any spaces that you use? So for example, there's lots of different societies where you can network. Yeah. Are there any common software engineering or spaces that you that you're a part of? And are you able to share that with our listeners?
So I'll be honest, I myself is something I actually want to work on in 2025. I actually want to be in a lot of more social spaces for tech. Okay. I don't know, for 3 years, I haven't been doing that. I've just been kind of like, working, just, networking within my organization, obviously like or with friends and stuff like that. But definitely want to try and, meet up with people. I think I've heard of a couple. I think there was, Black in Tech or like a Black Tech Week that just I think finished a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Definitely something that I think I want to go to, and I think other people should be going to as well. I think another thing as well is events by Google. Like Google hosts a number of events, whether it's virtual or in person. Go to them.
I think IBM do quite a lot as well.
Exactly, go to them. Really like these are really good initiatives and things that you should definitely be going to.
And where can people find this information?
Honestly, Google. You can literally just do Google conferences and it'll come up. Apple conferences and it'll come up. Some of them are obviously not in the country. If you're willing to fly. But if not, there will definitely be some in your country, in your local area, for sure.
So, where can people find you?
Man.
And in fact, before I say that, really, what does the future look like for you? Do you intend to stay as a software engineer? Do you see yourself going more into consultancy roles, leading departments? What does it look like?
Yeah, so
how can we follow this journey?
Yeah, man. So for me, future-wise, I love software engineering. Like I said, I love solving problems. I love learning new technologies. So you'll definitely see me typing away, coding, writing new pieces of code. So whether that's in front end, because I'm trying to learn front end as well, just like be a full stack. So I think for me, 2025, my journey is definitely to try and be a full stack engineer. And that will still be at the place I'm at because I'm loving it right now. And yeah, if you want to, keep up with the journey, LinkedIn, my name is Chuks Ajeh, CHUKS, and Instagram as well. I post on there quite often as well, so you could probably keep up with it there. Same thing, tag name is my name. So
amazing. Chuks, it's been fantastic to have this discussion with you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, man.
I think you've definitely given us some insight. I've definitely learnt a few things today. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next stage of your journey.
Thank you.